Well, joining us in studio this evening to discuss this and answer some of those questions is the Energy Minister, Mamaloko Kubai, joins me here in studio. Good evening to you, Minister. Thank you for joining us here on ANN7.
Good evening and good evening to your viewers. Thank you for inviting me to come and be part of the session today.
It's our pleasure. A lot of questions that need some sort of answering, Minister. Now, you've broken this sort of deadlock to get Eskom to sign these PPAs. This was due to be signed last year. Just talk us through this entire process and how we've gotten to this point.
No, definitely, it was not an easy decision, I must say. We had to have a process. I mean, as you're saying, it's been some time.
Yes.
That the deadlock has been there. So we put together a team that comprised of the Department of Energy, the Department of Public Enterprise, National Treasury officials, IPP office, and obviously Eskom, saying that can they find a solution to what we have, because we acknowledge that we can't take the whole situation and just keep quiet. The IPPs were not signed. There was a commitment, including the president making sure that saying we need to sign, but there was no movement.
Okay.
And obviously because there were challenges that were raised by Eskom and other issues that we are starting to pick up when I got into the portfolio. When I met with several people, there is issues around even your black participation, BE participation level into that, because there were some allegations that these are mainly foreign owned,
yes,
and therefore do not cater for mainly South African participation. So we had to look at that. But the major part then hit us was the fact that Eskom was saying we're sitting with excess capacity. When we're sitting with excess capacity, and if we sign here, it means we have to make sure that we are able to take up this electricity. Now, what do we do with electricity if it's in excess? We don't have the market for it. And the market can be looked in various ways. Why we have. One, it was the slow growth in economy, because obviously with the issues of job losses, a lot of people can't afford to buy electricity, so they're moving off the grid. Secondly, it's people who are opting for using gas, for example, for cooking and heating, moving away from the grid. All those things make an impact. And therefore you end up with a low user percentage for Eskom. But again, during the time when we had load shedding, Eskom pulled out of some of the countries they were providing electricity for, because they had to prioritize South Africa. So we lost the market share.
Okay.
Now, that contributes to all these issues. Now, when you look at that, then you say, okay, what can we do? Do we continue to procure, bring in additional, and you don't have? I visited, for example, Project Dediza in the Guha plant, and part of the issues I asked them there was that they have a plant that is running. It's currently running on diesel. We envisaged it to move into gas. So it's running on diesel. It's connected to the grid, national grid of electricity in Eskom. Now, Eskom pays them operationally, full day operation. They need to be available for Eskom, but the usage of Eskom for that plant is about 3 hours.
Okay.
Now, when you look at that, those are the things I'm looking at when we're taking decision. If we are currently paying plants which are in operation, for example, those who are in bid window 1, 2, and 3, we are paying them even if we are not utilizing them to 100% capacity. Why should we continue? And that's why we committed ourselves to bid window 3.5 to 4. And we've not gone outside what we think is additional. So we said, because these ones have been procured by government, how do we solve them? And that's how we came to discuss and saying, okay, what is affordable for Eskom? Affordability, then we came to that price. And I must say, part of the issues, and it was a serious compromise, and I hope that the sector as well understand the compromise we had to make. Because looking at the technologies, in the renewable sector, as time moves, technologies becomes cheaper. So we should be able to get cheaper electricity from renewables, not the same rate that we are getting from coal, for example. And that's one of the things I was asking myself when I got to the portfolio to say, why are we having this situation? We shouldn't be having the situation this way. And then you pick up again, the same renewable guys will go and offer cheaper rates to your municipalities and others. Now, that I feel is unfair as well. But we're saying, okay, while we are there, we acknowledge, I must be upfront, acknowledge that certain mistakes were done by us as the department. We should have been vigilant. We should have understood the sector, understood that as you move along, technology will improve, therefore your prices will be cheaper. So don't tie yourself to long term on certain prices that will become too expensive for you in the future. That is unreasonable. So we could have done the procurement in a better environment, which we didn't. And maybe because we were inexperienced in the field of renewables as South Africa. And if you look across the globe, that's what happens. So prices are coming down on technologies around renewables, but we are tied to these higher prices. And part of my responsibility as minister, I can't be reckless. My duty first is to protect South Africa. Is to make sure that consumers don't end up having to pay more, because some of them argue that no, we put investment and therefore this is not the money Eskom is paying, they will come in tariff. But there's somebody who's paying for it, and that's South African consumers. If it's 77 cents, that is going to have to come from when NERSA do the tariffs, we'll have to put that tariff in. And therefore it goes into what we call the increases annually.
Okay. Minister, now you've touched on the challenges that's been experienced. You've spoken about the compromises and possible mistakes that the ministry has made. But I remember you speaking in one of your press briefings, and you mentioned that it's a very complex process and you need to find some sort of balance between the various partners and people involved here. Do you feel like you've reached that balance that needs to be struck?
We're still trying. It's a very complex environment, definitely. I don't think so. We were, when you look at the reaction, immediately we announced, it was on a Friday, we announced there was a positive response. We could pick up positive response from media. But immediately, 3 days, 4 days down the line, then a negative sentiment came through.
Okay.
And almost like threatening to say, but you can't. And we're saying, we can't be reckless. I can't be reckless as a minister. I'm sitting where I'm saying the state has to protect its country. We have to protect what we spend, what we use. Because sometimes they say, no, this is investment, but there are guarantees that are put in the back of this. Eskom will have to have guarantees to say if Eskom can use, therefore the users will not lose. And those guarantees are guarantees of the state. If Eskom can pay, it means the state has to pay. Now, in the current environment, with the views of the Minister of Finance saying we need to tighten our belt, we need to find better ways of doing it, I can't be reckless and continue to expose the state to higher risks in terms of the guarantees. Now, the reaction out there is mixed. There are those that are saying yes, there are those. But I've picked up where I'm concerned about is that certain decisions are not taken by projects in the country, but taken by multinationals. Now, my appeal is to say all decisions must be taken in the best interest of South Africa and its people. It can't be about other nations. It can't be about profit. It must be about the country.
The country needs to come first. Minister, one of the reasons cited by Eskom was an issue of unaffordability. Do you think this tariff has taken out that issue? And also just give us some background as to how this 77 cents per kilowatt hour has been reached.
To be honest, it's a compromise from both sides. That's why when I issued the statement, I said we have to meet each other halfway. Eskom would have wished for a lesser tariff. When they engaged with us, actually, they would have wished for us not to sign. Now, we said we have to think about the investment that has come in. So let's meet each other. Eskom must come on board, agree to sign into a particular percentage. And the others need to understand that we are finding ourselves, the IPPs needs to understand we are finding ourselves in where we are. The independent power producers must come through as well, meet us halfway. So both parties, from the side of Eskom and from the side of independent power producers, must come to the middle. And we think this middle is where we are saying let's sign for less than 77 cents, and 77 cents becomes a cap. And I need to explain, there are certain projects which are quoted below 77 cents. And that's why we are saying those who are quoted below 77 cents, let's proceed and sign them.
Okay.
so that we don't have problems. Those who are quoted above 77, if they feel that they are going to lose, then we can have a conversation, which currently the team in IPP office is doing. And I've said as a minister, I can set a policy, I can issue statements at the level where I'm protecting the state and I'm doing what I'm expected in terms of the executive authority as per the constitution, and then I can leave there. I can't go into the detail of negotiation, which will be handled by the IPP office with the team led by Karen. Now, once they are done with that, and they can report back to say if there are challenges, I've committed to having a meeting with the sector just to raise broad issues around how we should be able to work. Secondly, how we should be able to ensure that the renewable sector becomes a sustainable sector and we can see growth, we can work going forward. So the things
Minister, sorry to interrupt you because we are quickly running out of time. Just with regards to a question that's been asked, does South Africa need this additional electricity? I mean, Eskom has said they're already sitting on a surplus, so why is this needed?
No, when we build electricity capacity, we don't build for now. We also build for the future.
For the future, yes.
So what we must look at is to say, let's look at various forms of energy generation capacity for the future.
Okay.
So now we are saying, that's why we are saying we will not commit to build windows outside 3.5 and 4 because we think we'll have enough electricity until somewhere 2021, and then we'll need to build further for later. So once we're doing a process what is called integrated energy plan and integrated resource plan. Once we release those final documents, that's policies, once we release them, they will tell us to say, we need so much capacity by this time. If they say 2022, you need to have so much capacity, then we'll start allocating to say, out of gas, this is how much we need. Out of coal, this is how much we need. Out of renewables, this is how much we need. Out of nuclear, this is how much we need.
So
and then we can be able to, yes, we have an equal spread of all the sources, because you can't build an economy of a country using one source, because that will be unreliable. If you are hit out, you can't produce that, then we have a crisis.
I see. Minister, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate you coming to chat to us this evening and answer some of those sometimes tough questions. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for making this time available for me to interact.
It's our pleasure. That was the Energy Minister, Maloku Kubai, joining us here on Newsroom Live. But it is time for a quick break, and that's where I leave you this evening. From myself, Abigail Fasahi, and the team, thank you for tuning in. Up next, ANN 7 Prime. Enjoy. Good night.